you think about it geographically, Egypt is in the south. Over in the east, in Mesopotamia, was the ancient empire of Assyria. And that's where these reliefs are from, Assyria. Sandwiched in the middle of Assyria, which is now modern-day Iraq, and Egypt was Israel, the nation of Israel. So now they're kind of in the middle of a lot of controversy, and then they were too. Now, there was supposed to be something special about this nation of Israel. Does anyone know what that was? They were supposed to represent their God to the other nations of the world. Maybe we've heard the phrase children of Israel before, or something like that. Well, Sennacherib, meanwhile, is the king of Assyria in 700 BC. And just like great kings, he wants to grow his empire. He wants to conquer the nations around him. So that's exactly what he starts doing. He starts conquering nations around Assyria. And finally, he's very successful and he ends up at Israel. Now, he's excited about the idea of conquering Israel because not only does it mean that he's stronger than Israel as a nation, but it also means if he's able to conquer them, that he's stronger than Israel's God. So that was his goal. But how do you capture an ancient empire? Well, you have to take what city?
The capital.
The capital, exactly. And does anyone know what the capital of ancient Israel was?
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. Exactly. So Sennacherib's goal is to get Jerusalem, is to capture Jerusalem. Well, he begins his invasion and his conquest, and he takes 45 cities until he gets to Lachish, which is the final city to take on his way to Jerusalem. This is the last stop, and these reliefs tell the story or depict what happened at the Battle of Lachish. All right? So let's go and look and see what an ancient battle looks like, all right? If you look right here, you can see the Assyrian soldiers. These are the slingers with the sling and stone, long-distance warfare. Then you see the rows of archers coming along for long distance. And as we move down the line, getting closer to the city of Lachish, we see some infantrymen with spears and shields coming on, advancing on the city, okay? And then we see siege ramps that have been built, and they're marching up siege ramps. Now, in ancient times, the way that they would protect cities was by building walls around it, right? And so the way to take a city that's got a wall around it is you have to get over the wall somehow, so they build these ramps. They probably weren't actually this steep, but they did it for the relief so that they could fit more on it. So you can see soldiers, Assyrians, invading, trying to come up the siege ramps, and meanwhile, torches and stones are being thrown down by the people from Lachish to try to defend the city. You see some other defenders and archers in this tower right here from Lachish. So this is a peek into an ancient battle scene. As good as it gets, high definition. Now let's look down here. You can come a little closer. Let's look down here. Somebody tell me what you see right here.
I see slaves.
Slaves, yeah, you see some people there. What we see is two soldiers, and they've got poles, and on top of those poles are dead people. Basically, they are human shish kebabs, because the Assyrians were notorious for their cruel practices. They wouldn't just kill you, because that's too humane. They would torture you first and make sure you die a slow, painful, and exemplary death to the rest of your comrades, because they specialized on intimidation. They did these cruel tactics in order to intimidate their enemies so that they would melt with fear as soon as they heard that the Assyrians were coming to town. I think I would be pretty scared too. Well, let's keep moving down the line. So they've gotten over the city walls, and now they've captured the city, and they're taking their plunder. They're taking their plunder. So we've got a cart and some soldiers right here, and they've got their candles. They've got some valuables that they're stealing from the city. They've got candlesticks, and they've got other valuable objects, but not only objects, they've got valuable human resources. Slaves, you can see a mother and a child being carted off into slavery, into exile right here in Lachish. All right, so if you want to come to the corner, we have a chair right here, but maybe some of you can see. Tell me what you see right here in this area. Anybody see? Tell me what's going on here. Yeah, you've got the soldiers are laying out two men, and if you look carefully at their legs, you see lines on their legs. Those are exposed muscles and tendons. Because like we said, the Assyrians wouldn't just kill you, they'd torture you first. So they ripped off the flesh of these men to help them die in a more painful way, and also in order to intimidate their enemies. They were brutal. So let's continue down the line. We've got more slaves that are leaving the city. Now somebody tell me the difference between this guy and this guy. Whose side do you think this guy's on? The Assyrians, yeah, the conquerors, the Assyrians. And whose side do you think this guy's on? The slave, yeah, the people from Israel or Lachish. You can tell also by their distinctive hairstyle depicted in archaeology. All right? Now as we come down the line, you see the slaves are being forced to bow down or pay homage to King Sennacherib himself, who's sitting on his throne and he's being fanned. And behind him is basically objects representing the glory and splendor of the empire of Assyria. We see all things that are supposed to depict greatness and plenty. We have olive branches, olive trees and palm branches, and all sorts of things like that to show that his empire is a great empire. Now, if you'll follow me right over here to this glass display case, the story isn't quite over yet. Because what was Sennacherib's ultimate goal? To take Jerusalem, exactly, because these are commemorating the astounding victory at Lachish, the last stop before Jerusalem. So Sennacherib goes with his troops and surrounds the city of Jerusalem with his 185,000 troops. But of course they're not going to fight yet because the Assyrians are going to intimidate a little bit first. So they start calling out to the people of Jerusalem, "Hey, don't listen to your king Hezekiah. He can't help you. Oh, and by the way, don't listen to your God. He can't help you either. Where are all the gods of these nations that we drove out before you? So you might as well go ahead and surrender now, or we're just going to make sure that you die a very slow and painful death." Now you can imagine. Now you can imagine. How would you feel about hearing something like that? They just conquered 46 cities, and they're knocking at your doorstep with some intimidating threats like that. I think I would be pretty afraid. Even more afraid than that. So King Hezekiah hears this report, and he's traumatized. But then he goes and he prays to his God. And he says, "God, we're supposed to represent you to all the nations. And so please help save us. Please save us today so that all the nations of the earth may know that you are God and there is no other." Well, this cylinder right here is a replica of the real one we're going to see upstairs in just a moment. But here is Sennacherib's side of the story. Sennacherib on this cylinder says that he went through Israel and conquered 46 cities and locked up Hezekiah in Jerusalem like a bird in a cage. Why did he stop there? The morning after Hezekiah's prayer, his 185,000 troops were found dead. You decide how they died, but I can tell you it wasn't by Israelite soldiers. Alright, so we were just downstairs in the Lachish Reliefs, where the astounding victory at Lachish, but the mysterious defeat at Jerusalem, where 185,000 soldiers were somehow found dead. This right here is the cylinder that Sennacherib had his scribes write after retreating from Jerusalem, and he gives his depiction of what happened. His invasion of Israel, taking 46 cities and locking up King Hezekiah in Jerusalem like a bird in a cage. This is the real cylinder. It's a very important archaeological find as well, called the Taylor Prism, and it dates back to 700 BC. But like we said, in 700 BC, Sennacherib failed to take Jerusalem. But there was another greater king who was able to do that very thing 100 years later. So if you'll move just